Something in the air. One day Arthur was on the quayside of Harwick fishing village. Fish were being loaded into his trucks. The work took a long time. The fishermen were using old equipment and Arthur was worried. "We'll soon be finished," said the fisherman. "Thanks," replied Arthur, "but I'm worried about being late for Henry at the docks. He won't like this." Arthur was then rudely interrupted. A chain on one of the old cranes broke and a box of fish landed on his boiler. His driver and fireman laughed. "I'm afraid we can't stop to clean you. We will be late if we do." Arthur understood. But on his way to Knapford Harbour, Arthur noticed many passengers and workers holding their noses as he passed. "Phew!" sniffed the passengers. "What a pong!" In between Tidmouth and Knapford, there's a single-track goods line that runs around the coast. Everyone calls it the coastal one. Arthur uses this line to avoid mainline trains. Then they saw a man waving a red flag. "What's the matter?" asked Arthur. "High tides are damaging the track," reported their man. "I've marked the spot." "We'll go and inspect," said the driver. Arthur moved slowly forward until they found the damaged track. Arthur's crew looked at the rails. "It would be dangerous for heavy engines like Henry," agreed the driver, "but for Arthur it's safe enough." The guard left a red oil lamp by the damaged tracks to warn engines. "When we get to the docks I'll tell them to close the line." So Arthur crossed the damaged track slowly and made his way to the harbour. Henry was waiting for Arthur's trucks. Night had fallen by the time Arthur arrived. "Poor, you're late," said Henry, "and that smell is making me ill." "It's the fish," replied Arthur, "and there's danger on the rails. That's why we're late." "Huh! You're the only danger on the rails, Arthur. Now stop wasting time and get your trucks hitched to my train." While Arthur shunted the trucks, his guard went to talk to the yardmaster in his office about the damaged tracks. They had just finished talking when they heard Henry's whistle. He was steaming out the harbour with his long heavy train called the Flying Kipper. The guard saw him through the office window. "What route is Henry taking tonight?" he asked. "The coastal one, it's the quickest." "But I told you," gasped the guard, "that's dangerous for a big engine like Henry." The yardmaster quickly phoned the signalman. Henry roared past the signal box. "I'll soon make up for lost time," he chuffed to himself. The signalman answered the phone but couldn't hear the warning. By the time he did, Henry was far away in a cloud of steam. But when Henry reached the coastal track, all the signals changed to danger. But Henry was in such a rush he didn't see him. And by the time he did, it was too late. The tracks collapsed with Henry's weight, and he fell into the sea. Luckily, no one was hurt, and most of the trucks stayed on the rails. Henry was feeling very wet and very foolish. Arthur's crew had just finished turning him around on a turntable when the guard and the yardmaster came up to them. They explained everything. "Do you want me to fetch the breakdown train?" asked Arthur. "No, it's too dark for a rescue. Leave him there until the morning." "It's the Flying Kipper that needs the rescue," said the guard. "The trucks are still on the line." "I could take the train," offered Arthur. The driver and fireman agreed. Arthur set off to bring the Flying Kipper back to the harbour, while the harbour master made the arrangements with the Fat Controller. When Arthur returned to the harbour with the trucks, the yard master was waiting for him. "So Tom Hat has given you permission to take the train. He's also made arrangements for a diesel from the other railway to take over the train at Barrow. We'll get it there right away," said Arthur's driver. Soon Arthur ran around to the front of the train and set off with the flying kipper. He took the main line and had no trouble with it. Even Gordon's hill didn't seem to slow him down. He soon arrived at Barrow-in-Furness in no time at all. Even the diesel waiting for him was impressed. The diesel took the train on to Manchester, while Arthur stayed the night at Barrow Sheds. The next morning, as soon as the tide was high enough, Henry was craned out of the water. The fat controller was cross. "I'm surprised at you, Henry. You should know better than to ignore danger signals. After you've been to the works, you'll stay at the sheds until you're wanted." "Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir." Because the tracks were still unsafe and Knapford's cranes weren't strong enough, Henry had to be taken by barge to Brendam docks to be lifted out. When Henry arrived at the docks, Cranky the crane looked down on him. My, Henry," teased Cranky. "I expect you've got some fishy tales to tell, but take my advice, have a long hose down first." "Pah," hissed Henry, but there was worse to come. "Look," called Bill, "they've caught all this fish and a big green whale too." "It's not a whale," said Ben. "It's a monster." Henry was most upset. After he was lifted back onto the rails, Basil came to take him to the works. "Come on, you'll feel better after a nice wash down." Later that morning, Arthur returned to Tidmouth and found the Bat Controller. "Well done. If it wasn't for you, the flying kipper wouldn't have made it last night." "Pleasure to help, sir," replied Arthur. "As a reward, you can pull the flying kipper until Henry returns." Arthur couldn't be more happier, and went home to tell Iris the good news. But as he left, the Bat Controller thought to himself, with Henry in the works and more goods coming to the island, Sodor was going to need another heavy goods engine.